Okay, time for some more illogic. Last time we went over our week 4 match against Sasbo and his Boulder Boulders. Please go check out that video first if you have not done so already, as we went over the team builder and battle in which, spoiler alert, the Bouffalant got their second win of the season, a 3-0 with the help of Cinderace breaking a bit, Miss Magius tearing holes, and Latios cleaning up. That brings our overall record to 2-2 plus 5, good for a playoff spot for now, but we have an absolutely brutal second half of the season starting here. This time we're going over our Week 5 matchup against Samantha and the 4-0 Wooper Boopers. Timestamps are in the description. The Boopers made a couple transactions after Week 5 of last season and followed that up by going 3-0 in the final 3 weeks, including my only loss of the entire season, to finish the number 7 seed. We did get our revenge in the quarterfinals in another pretty close match, but boy, has she proven the mettle of the Boopers, especially with 4 straight wins to start off this season against the Close Combat Club, the Steamrollers, the Boulders, and most impressively, the Terrifier Heatwave, who we just lost to in Week 3. With a 7-1 record in her last 8, it seems safe to say that she has indeed arrived as a serious threat in the league, at the same time as many other coaches, seriously upping the overall level of our league, so I'm super happy to see her doing well this season. But that means we have to contend with our vicious team, with Sneasler at the top of the speed tiers, followed by Zebstrika, Enamorous Incarnate, Jirachi, Charizard, Baxcalibur, Tatsugiri, Tsarina, Incineroar, Sableye, and Mudsdale, headed by Terra Captains Enamorous Incarnate and Charizard. Wow, are those top tiers absolutely insane? The newly minted Terra Captain status on Enamorous Eye is well warranted with the Stellar type, and one of the best, if not the best, abuser of the newest typing, thanks to Contrary. Sneasler is like Quacklevault in its ability to sweep from nowhere, maybe more reliant on a boost, but can maybe get that just as often thanks to the 50% status chance from Dire Claw. What an absolutely heinous move. Baxcalibur is so good. I used it in Season 13 after hearing several other YouTubers blasting its viability in draft compared to OU. But boy, was that the MVP of that season. Maybe not just for me, but the whole league with how dominant it was after I picked it up, so I'm well aware of its prowess. Jirachi being a glue piece is great. She's used it well with Wish this season at that bulky pivot between these threats. It's a nice supporting cast too, though this is her last week to use Charizard, Mudsdale, and Zebstrika before they get swapped out for Raikou, Lycanroc Midnight, and Oinkologne. Speaking of transactions, I guess I've got to address my changes before talking about the matchup. It's 3 Pokemon in for 3 Pokemon out, a tier 9 for a 9, a 6 for a 6, and a 3 for a 3. And that includes 2 Terra Captain changes as well. Gone are Galarian Weezing, Mismagius, and Cloth. And in are Rotom Mo, who takes Mismagius' Terra Captain status, Hisuian Typhlosion, and Appleton, who will be taking Bisharp's Terra status. Cloth was probably a done deal early. I just could not find a way to make it work or be relevant in any matchup, and it really wasn't providing all that much that was critical to my team composition anyways, so it was out without too much hassle, though I'm sad I could not show off my Stormlight Archive nickname. Mismagius was great in its one match, but in that matchup specifically compared to others, thanks to outspeeding Thundy and Mew. Compare that to here, where it would outspeed Jirachi compared to Typhlosion, but Enamorous still gets the jump on me, and the power coming from Shadow Ball just hasn't been cutting it, frankly, which just isn't good enough. We're not looking for power now with our new Ghost anyways, which I'll go over shortly. Maybe the weirdest change is Weezing Galar, what with losing our Poison type as well as our Fairy type and our Defogger, not to mention the 4th round pick. But I'm okay with it, not just as punishment for missing that strange team turn 1 of the season. I think it embodied the issue I was having with the team. Passive and inflexible. In theory, each Mon's role had fit well in the team and was technically sound, with all boxes checked and a solid mix of offense and defense, physical and special. But I mentioned it before, something was wrong or missing. Something felt a little off, and I think Weezing's inflexibility perfectly encapsulates this team's problems. It would come in and shut down certain Mons, and then fall victim to Deoxys or Lumberry Revavroom, do nothing to Heatran, get revenged by Iron Valiant, or even with Strange Team hitting, allow Lycanroc to set up all over it. I really felt like I couldn't do as much as I needed from its slot, so we replaced it with something I'm well familiar with that can definitely run a few different sets. That's going to be Rotom Mo, the last of the Rotom forms for me to use in the Wooper Club League, though I did use it one season in 8-bit to decent success. Shout out to that Sand team. I remember Excadrill, T-Tar, Reuniclus, Araquanid, among others. That was a fun one. Rotom's 86 base speed isn't much, but does lend to a Scarf set well, something I really wanted after seeing me rely on Latios for Scarfs and Yanmega's speed boost each of the last few weeks, hopefully taking some pressure off of the tier 7 bug type for that role. It also gives momentum in Volt Switch, which I've been struggling to find room for with Iron Hands, another special booster with Nasty Plot to help replace Mismagius in that role, but also providing status support while keeping a much needed ground immunity. Grass is a new typing too, but with Terra we have some nice options. I've seen what, say, a Rotom fan has done and other leagues with Terra. I can definitely see us sporting a setup set with Terra Blast and T-Bolt as coverage to blast through unsuspecting teams, or Scarf past them with the option of tricking it away. Plus, the return of Pain Split is excellent along with other items like Lefties or Type Resist Berries, as Rotom isn't reliant on Terra like, say, Yanmega is. I'm definitely familiar with Rotom forms. You are familiar with Rotom forms. It's more the same, but still feels a little more flexible than what Weezing was doing, frankly. Typhlosion-Hisui over Mismagius was kind of the inspiration for the spree, frankly. I miss the 105 speed a little bit, and probably the ground immunity as well, but otherwise I'm pretty ecstatic about what Typhlosion brings. Another fire type? Yes, but on the special side this time, something that can definitely stack up with Cinderace to help break down each other's checks effectively, plus Cinder's not going to be fire type all the time. This means maybe we don't need to be running Pyro Ball all the time. We'll see about that. One of these two definitely has more power than the other as well. Yeah, Eruption is a neat draw for Typhlosion. Unleashing a base 150 power move freely is incredibly appealing against just about any team, working well once again with a Scarf, but maybe Specs can provide a little more power against slow teams. There are multiple teams whose second fastest mon is slower than 95. We could also run Boots as the safe option to ensure Eruption stays strong against slower teams too. The coverage is pretty decent as well. Stab Ghost moves obviously hit most of the game, including its signature move Infernal Parade, which acts as a Scald plus Hex, but also plenty of other fire moves, plus Focus Blast, Calm Mind setup, Willow of course, extra sensory, and a surprising physical move pool off base 84 attack, which is at least higher than Gligar. Add in Frisk as a neat way to scout items, and we've got what feels like just a stronger Mismagius, frankly, with even a little more bulk on the physical side too. A swap I'm definitely pleased to make overall. And of course, finally, we're doubling up on types with Appleton, who gives us our second new grass type in addition to our second dragon overall compared to Latios. But it sure is a different look from Latios, who often has its psychic type preyed upon for weaknesses, comparatively, or Rotom Mo, who is mainly weak to fire and ice. Which brings us, of course, to Thick Fat, a great reason to bring the Apple Pie as a defensive Terra option. Another ground and water resist is pretty great, but we have the ability to get out of the doubled up typing if we want to, and still take advantage of the ability in a different way than Levitate, thanks to 2 free resists against fire and ice. Let's say, for example, that we want to go Poison if I want to absorb T-Spikes. This gives me a solid Fairy and Fighting resist, sure, but we also still get fire and ice on top of that thanks to the ability, which is so sick. Appleton mostly profiles as a tank, of course, with tons of bulk and consistent usage of Recover and Leech Seed. Fellow fans of Wo-Chen may see what's so appealing about having this Terra for me. We've got some offensive prowess too, though, with 100 special attack and once again a surprising 85 attack. Apple Acid is great to do reliable grass damage, unlike Rotom, while reducing Spidef. Draco Meteor or Dragon Pulse, of course, can chunk. Dragon Tail can help take phasing off of Empoleon's plate a little bit. Iron Defense and Body Press could really help with tankiness and provide a surprise look. And hey, who knew this got Sucker Punch? Just adding to the Sucker Punch squad, I guess. That's all of our priority right there, it feels like. I think we're mostly going to be using Boots and Lefties, but I think I have a couple other tricks up my sleeve. See if we pull out the Ripen or Gluttony sets too sometime. So that's going to be our additions, hopefully an upgrade to the team, but we're going to have to wait for the prep and matches to see if that is true. Speaking of, let's finally get to what I expect from my opponent. Zebstrika is tough. Sap Sipper and Motor Drive Mind Games are funny for Rotom. It outspeeds all but Cinder. Yeah, but otherwise, it's still ultimately a Zebstrika. Still got some very funny answers and walls. No thanks. Serena can spin and has pretty decent coverage there, plus the ability to U-turn around. But honestly, it's not something I care about much. It can get worn down relatively easily, is outsped by several prominent threats on my squad, or is just outtraded by just about everything. Sableye has been favored by the Boopers for its ability to set screens and mess with teams in other ways, but honestly, as long as I have a way to deal with screens, we're good. Court change anyone? Not terribly worried. Charizard may be surprisingly high on my list here. I haven't favored Hazards all that much, and seeing that could mean Charizard could come out to play. Sun is dangerous, though, with my 2 fire types, and it's still outsped by most of the squad, and it may need a favorable Terra type, taking away from an Amorous, so while it could be scary, I don't think it's coming. I debated about the last lot quite a bit. I think I'm going to say that Tatsugiri is the one left behind, though. Sure, it's a way to absorb an incoming fire move, but unless it's Scarf Cinder and Typhlosion are generally fine doing that in Tagiri, plus Latios outspeeds unless it's Scarf as well. And Empoleon does sit on it all day long for absolutely free. That seems like a lot going against already, so that means I am a Mudsdale believer for sure. In its final week on the Boopers, its physical profile is very solid, tanking Cinder and Iron Hands freely while getting up rocks almost for free. It could struggle with the special attackers if it doesn't have just the right coverage, though, which could be tough to fit. But I'm actually mostly terrified, I believe, of a Rest Mudsdale, just getting stamina boost, and then maybe boosting through the team with Body Press. Incineroar isn't the greatest mon in singles by any stretch, but it's got a good defensive profile against quite a bit of my team in particular. Cinder hit with Intimidate and would need a high jump kick. Latios hit by knockoff. Typhlosion stonewalled minus Focus Blast. On Mega needs a particular Terra. Bisharp and Empoleon don't like CC, even if they don't mind the Intimidate and Parting Shot boosting them. Iron Hands does not want to be burned or repeatedly intimidated. Rotom can only pivot out. The knockoff spam too is tough, and I think I need my items pretty badly to deal with this team. We'll see what the best way to wear it down will be if it's rocking boots. And to make it even tougher to wear down, Jirachi with Wish has been a staple on our team all season. No reason it can't do that again here. It's not great against my fire types or Bisharp, but otherwise looks super solid to wall up on Latios in particular. Rotom, Empoleon, Appleton, even Hands can be punished by a Stab Psychic move, and in the meantime, it can set up Rock, switch up teammates, T-Wave my team. It's tough, that's for sure. We'll have to pivot smartly, as it also does too with U-Turn. Sneasler is brutal with that Dire Claw and CC combo. We have a couple possible answers, but it just takes one para to turn a game. Trust me, we learned that already. Unburden Sweep is quite possible. As is Scarf, we're going to need to answer the speedy threat. But the top two are on another level. What tanks any Enamorous hit? Terra Blast gets stronger and stronger. Moonblast is already crazy good, but add an Earth Power and you hit basically everything on my team. So, what can wall Stellar Terra Blast? Good question. And finally, I learned something very unfortunate about the new squad as I prepped for Baxcalibur. 10 of my 11 mons are hit super effectively by ice or ground moves, with the one that isn't being the 1-point Komala. So, yeah, it's not Mamoswine, but a boosting Baxcalibur is too scary. What am I doing about that? Well, I just mentioned Komala, but not this time. Sneasler KOs, can't take any Nam hit or KO back. Baxcalibur doesn't care. Jirachi definitely doesn't care. Incineroar takes forever. So does Mudsdale. Sableye Spin Blocks. No good matchups for Komala here. Oops. The positive is that I found a use for literally everything else, but the Terra slot was stiff competition. To that end, Rotom isn't making its debut here yet. Terra Poison was super cute for Sneasler and Enamorous, but otherwise, Excalibur doesn't care about me. Incin needs to be Volt switched on. Mudsdale baits on a move for Bax to swap in, and it's tough to predict, and Jirachi takes advantage too. The toughest for sure would be trying to put a Will-O-Wisp on something only for Bax to come in and take advantage of that. Ooh, the Terra is better elsewhere, and I thought for a long time that it would be Appleton. But that's not the answer either. If I go into typing neutral to ground, EQ can still do about half at +1 from Bax, so if it sets up, I really don't answer as well as I'd like to, while also still being weak to Enamorous' Stellar Terra Blast, and being susceptible to being worn down too much to answer what I need to. It's a tough week for it. Bisharp had a cool niche. Despite being unable to Terra, I thought about something like a possible Choice Scarf to be able to Iron Head down Enamorous or Baxcalibur, but that sure seemed unreliable. Incin gives a Defiant boost but resists all but low kick. Mudsdale couldn't care less. Jirachi reading the Scarf throws a big wrench in the plan too, despite being Dark Weak. Nothing quite spammable enough for the Scarf set, and anything else just was going to be taken advantage of because it was outsped. Finally, this could be surprising, but my 15-point Latios is riding the bench this week. Yes, Sneasler outspeeding, Enamorous probably living a hit and OHKOing back, Baxcalibur possibly outspeeding and KOing, Jirachi walling, Incineroar walling, and those are the top 5 threats, and Latios does not perform well enough into them, unfortunately. What is fortunate is that I feel good about the 6 we are bringing, starting with my dedicated lead, Hisui and Typhlosion. Its debut is marked with Eruption and Fire Blast there, depending on my health. Focus Blast for Incineroar, of course, and the cheeky Quick Attack for Sashes and Chip. Ghost coverage really isn't needed compared to the others, so long as Charizard doesn't show up, so here we go. Focus Sash as a lead is because I want to punish an early setup of Stealth Rock, and if I can do so, here there are 3 free hits. Setup Rocks, get hit by an attack, get hit by another as I go to Sash, and then another final hit. If Typhlosion dishes out that damage, I'm satisfied, but if I need to swap around, Frisk can still help decipher my opponent's game plan too, so no big deal there. Definitely thought about a few other items here too though. Scarf to get the jump on anything at all. Specs Eruption actually OHKOs Mudsdale and does almost half to Max Spadef Incineroar, funnily enough. Colbur for Incineroar could give me another chance to Focus Blast. Shuka for Mudsdale or Enamorous or Baxcalibur EQing to give me another turn even after Rocks. But Sash seemed most reliable if I'm going to be in a dedicated lead situation. Flame Charge was also in consideration in case I could force a switch, but maybe next time. Modest Speed Creeping Adamant Baxcalibur, we want to maximize our damage output this week. Let's look at the next fire type then. Yeah, it's a pretty standard Cinderace. I thought about swapping out Pyro Ball for Iron Head, which would of course hit Enamorous and Baxcalibur, or High Jump Kick for Incineroar in particular, but I noticed a lack of ways to really hit Jirachi hard, which is a problem if it's switching up with a lot of bulk. Otherwise, part 2 of the plan is to bait in Rocks and then punish with Typhlosion, and then court change them back ASAP to help support the rest of the team. Otherwise, Sucker Punch is a way to out-prioritize and get some easy chip on key targets to help bring them in range of the rest of the team, with U-turn as an easy pivot move, particularly on Incineroar coming in still do maybe about a quarter or so to it. That's so straightforward and easy, and so is going to be Gligar's set, with EQ for Sneasler, Toxic for the obvious switch-ins, U-turn for the obvious switch-ins, and Knockoff for the obvious switch-ins. What's not as obvious is, yep, we're bringing back an old classic. I used this tech to beat the undefeated Noctowls in Season 8. It's Rocky Helmet over Eviolite on a defensive piece, this time on Gligar instead of Tangela. Shout out to Tangela, my favorite Pokemon of all time. But as it's not here, Gligar can instead be used as the dedicated Sneasler Answer-Amon that doesn't even learn Ice Punch and cannot poison me either thanks to immunity. Swap in on it, and then pick basically anything, all of which have various excellent uses. I think I'll mostly be clicking U-turn, but if I'm very scared of, say, Scarf Excalibur or Enamorus coming in, Knockoff could definitely be the play. Despite this being a great answer to Sneasler, I may just play very aggressively with Gligar. I cannot afford to allow Excalibur to set up freely, for example, or if I can determine if Enamorus is plus special attack by staying in and getting the slow U-turn. Despite seemingly limited use, I'm still glad Gligar can come again as a 4-point Mon. Okay, getting a little weird with Iron Hands. Please don't ask me about the EV spread. I don't remember. Just know I was cooking, and as a result, decided on the moves. Brick Break for screens, Sableye to help me break through on something setting up. Earthquake hits Jirachi especially, but also Sneasler in a pinch. Heavy Slam nails Enamorus, and I was once again impressed by the close combat calcs into most opponents this week, especially as by far the best way to at least dent Mudsdale while being spammable aside from Enamorus, including doing over half to Sneasler even. To help out against the Enamorus, even a little tiny bit, we're rocking that Roselli Berry. Yeah, we're hoping to bait it in and KO, even surviving a timid Moonblast, even when we're at -1 SpDef from close combat, while KOing back. We've got some issues dealing with that monster. I did think about Assault Vest, but if this is the specific scenario I want to punish, I will specialize. See, we're learning a little bit from week 1, maybe. That mindset will follow too with the Empoleon set, which is finally a different look from usual, rocking an offensive set this week with Flash Cannon for Excalibur and Enamorus, Surf for Mudsdale and Incineroar, plus a Vacuum Wave to pick off targets like a weakened Excalibur, all backed up by Roost for longevity. Modest gives us the damage we need alongside Roost to actually 1v1 the targets we need to, and that Chuka Berry is here to bait something in yet again, this time with a focus on Excalibur, who isn't hurting us too badly otherwise, especially since it really only needs ice and ground coverage this week. Here's hoping we catch it by surprise, then also turn around and nail something else hard. I think this set has a lot of potential this week. Speaking of, it's not really anything new, but Yanmega is the last yet again, but I really like the ability for it to clean up this week with Terra Rock to hit Enamorus and Excalibur while getting out of the ice weakness from Ice Shard. If we find a chance to proc Throat Spray, we should be plentiful, honestly, and Speed Boost up a couple of times. We are rocking and rolling. We OHKO at neutral, Enamorus, Sneasler, and Excalibur. At +1, we OHKO Incineroar, and 2 at KO Jirachi, just with those 3 moves. Basically, we get Jirachi chipped, and maybe something like Mudsdale or Tatsugiri chipped, and then find the right time to Bug Buzz. That could be GG right there. And that's the team, all female to avoid any cute charm shenanigans from the always female Enamorus. Banking on a lead Typhlosion and a cleanup Yanmega feels pretty good for a change, actually. So let's hop into the match. I was starting to get that feeling Mudsdale may be absent, seeing as it hasn't come all season, is about to be changed out. But I was worried about it. Instead, it's Tatsugiri who comes with its own set of issues. I feel like it should be Scarfed, we'll have to see. In the meantime, we do have Stellar Enam to deal with as expected, and we've got a dedicated lead, so let's go, good luck, have fun. To the Boopers, Sneasler to start, and it looks as though it is Scarfed, maybe not Unburdened then. So this is awkward. I do have Gligar in the back, and boy, that sure would make sense to go to immediately, but I don't know, that seems obvious. A U-turn turn 1, as I'm expecting, wouldn't be great, and I'd much rather get a near full power hit off, but just going Incin after my sash is broken, I could just miss Focus Blast. I mean, if rocks aren't going off, I'm probably fine with gambling the 70%, but let's just get the damage off now with Eruption. Oops, that's Throat Chop, and that means Eruption's power is going to be cut severely, and the poison from Poison Touch, which makes sense. Poison to boot is a little, it leaves me without much to do here. It does suck, but okay, so if I swap out now, I do save Typhlosion, and I can survive a round of poison later. Let's try it knowing that Sneasler is locked into the weak move. Gligar is going to be in, tanks handily the Jolly attack, and more chip back is good, good, good. Now Sneasler is not going to stay in, that much is obvious, so I'm not clicking EQ. But what? Well, Knockoff seems wrong, but if Sneasler stays in, what is it doing anyways? I mean, removing the Scarf would be useful for outspeeding and just 1 speed boost with the Yanmega later. Actually, oops again, I did mess up by not outspeeding +1 Sneasler after 2 speed boosts. That would be funny if that came up again, wouldn't it? Anyways, I think I'm going to click knock off to keep scouting items, potentially stop something big from coming in to threaten my whole team with a scarf or something else. Backscaler makes sense to me. We are going to knock off. Boots, that's the safe option. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So, but I do know that it doesn't have an item, and that's pretty good. So now for the hard part. I did say that I'd be willing to make some tough decisions this match, and that's going to include this exact scenario. Boy, would an Icicle Crash do too much to me to survive. But I'm not going to let it just set up for free. I need to know if it's setting up, and if it is, I need to go into the correct answer for free. I'm so sorry, Gligar, but I am going to click U-turn. Glaive Rush. I brought the dragon move. Interesting. We take half, it takes helmet recoil, and with the debuff in place, U-turn absolutely chunks, and that means that this is an easy peasy play for me. Knowing it isn't scarfed, Cinderace has the freest U-turn out, which will of course KO from this range with ease, thanks to that Glaive Rush debuff, which would give me the positioning that I need. It's just out of range of Vacuum Wave, but it is in the range of Bug Buzz right now. Actually, we'll keep that in mind for later, just in case, as it of course is going to swap out and try to catch up some chip here. Incineroar makes sense. Intimidate, U-turn, yep, 14%, that's it. That, my friends, is a very physically bulky Incineroar, not what I was expecting, what would be handling a Typhlosion and Latios, but really does make some sense, actually. Still, it looks like it should be pretty close to being in range of close combat. A shot to KO if it's Boots, as I suspect it should be. So in comes hands to click buttons and maybe bait in that Enamorous. Again, the Sneasler just goes down to CC, actually, which is really crazy. So let's just click the button here. Ooh, it does have a little bit of speed for my speed creeping, good to know. Parting Shot cut in, which means that Jirachi is only going to take 34 from close combat and get lefties recoveries, as Iron Hands is just missing some stats right now. So I know I minus everything, and Psychic would Shrek me right about now. But if I can get this chunked down, I'm actually in a really good spot. Actually, I'm kind of just this and Tatsugiri being chunked down away from Yanmega sweeping already, thanks to the physical defensive nature of Incin. To that end, I think I want to aggressively stay in and click the super effective move. U-turn, not punish, thank goodness. And Incin comes out and going to be taking only 22 from a -2 EQ. Though Hands is so strong. But at this point, I think she's getting a little sick and tired of my shenanigans. I suspect an attack is coming off here. Willow could really neuter me or knock off without rocks going up yet. Cinder's item is probably the most expendable there in Boots, especially if Willow is coming and I can escape at full. So I'm going to try that play here. Knockoff is unfortunate, does almost half there, but that's honestly overall fine. Wonder if I can threaten the high jump kick. I really don't have a way to threaten this thing anyways. But hey, U-turn should still chunk pretty well anyways. Just, what do I go into if Incin stays in? I'm kind of running out of options. Something not passive, but not something that wants to tank another knock. Again, not much I can do. I'll decide if it stays in. Yeah, it sure does. Crit does help there, 34%. That does bring it quite low, and that is excellent to see. We'll see if that ends up mattering or not. So what did it go for? I think my two options are either knock off again, or probably more likely is Parting Shot. In that case, it would be awesome to take advantage of Empoleon. It might be too early for that and too risky in case of another knock. The in-between answer that I don't want to admit here is Typhlosion, which I think I'm going to send out to either sack or get some chip. I see the Boots. Yep, that makes sense. Parting Shot. Okay, in that case, I'd like to take advantage of Empoleon. It would have been nice, wouldn't it? It would have been great. But that's fine. Instead, we get to see the Enamorous. Imagine getting a +3. So Enamorous, of course, does threaten the KO. Not just the KO, but a potential setup opportunity for a Scarfing Hammerous if it's Stellar Terra Blast here. That could spell absolute disaster. But, I mean, what can I do about that? I don't really have a choice but to stay in and let Typhlosion go down. We don't outspeed, so I guess I can at least Quick Attack to potentially break a Sash. Oh, what if it is Sash? Relying on Tatsugiri to spin for it. Like I've got Yanmega without Boots thanks to Cinder. Well, let's just get our chip, I suppose. And before we go down, Tatsugiri into tank before we go down. That could actually be a hint. Afraid of the Sash going down? Maybe. Unlikely, I suppose, unless you thought I was Scarfed, perhaps. The Quick Attack was unexpected, it sounds like. So you were expecting a fast fire move. Again, maybe it's your Sashed, but more importantly, I think this move leads me to think that Enamorous isn't Scarfed. If you're Scarfed, you outspeed my potential Scarf Typhlosion, so why be scared enough to go into your 4x resist? Not Scarf. Maybe we can work with that if Cinder can stick around, but it doesn't Oko anyways. So it's complicated and confusing, but for now we've got a Tatsugiri with what looks like some HP investment to deal with now. So I think probably Iron Hands is a cute play to once again force some damage to stick onto something, especially with me feeling a little better knowing that Enamorus isn't Scarfed. So I'm going to go into Hands and close combat away. Incineroar is the sack as expected, and with that we are tied up at 5 technically. Actually, a lot of progress being made on both sides here. We've got a Cinder at half and Gligar at about a quarter, and she's got Sneasler and Baxcalibur right around just under half, and Jirachi at 3/4. We're looking pretty even, with each of us trying to whittle the other's team down for a sweep, I think. +1 Bax is still very frightening, as is Stellar Enamorus, even without a Scarf, but maybe more concerning would be Jirachi with the potential to wish the team back up to a healthy status, a luxury I do not have. Instead, coming out is going to be the Tatsugiri again, which is interesting, maybe to take advantage of Iron Hands' stats. What hit upon me that Tatsugiri really doesn't do much to Empoleon. If it's Scarfed, I can take advantage of it entirely by roosting off damage or getting off free flash cannons to anything not named Jirachi. And what's it going to do? Memento and give me a +2 special attack? I think I'm going to hop on over there now. Nasty plot. Oh, I don't like that. I don't like that. In fact, what if it keeps boosting? What if it gets off a hit and then eject packs out of there? Oh, I don't want that at all. Even if Empoleon looks like a great wall, I'm a bit worried about that incoming hit. Can I confirm that I'm safe? It doesn't look like it gets anything that can hit even neutrally, but I'm not 100% actually, unless I make a sack on a possible +2 hit now. I guess I could roost here too, but I can't exactly hit Tatsugiri hard anyways, and sacking something would let me get some more chip off. I'm so sorry, Gligar. I know you could have been used in other ways, but I think this is going to be fine for now. I want you to come in, eat the +2 Draco, and go down. It's going to reveal no eject pack or anything either, but that does mean that I can go back into Cinderace for another very free U-turn. We're really loving getting stab U-turn constantly on this guy, so we're going to just U-turn off. 52%. Oh, I actually tanked that a little better than I wanted it to, but that's a good amount of HP this thing has. Really nothing to do but go into Empoleon to tank a hit, I believe. Is probably just the best play to go back here. Surf 16%, that's not much. Honestly, I'm still out of reach of the important to tank moves, and the moveset being revealed does show how good of a check Empoleon is looking now with help from Roost if possible. To that end, it seems doubtful it'll stay in, so Flash Cannon hitting 3 possible switch-ins is pretty great. I think we're just going to go with that. Oh, Jirachi, the one that I said I didn't want to get up a wish, the one that does tank a Flash Cannon. Yeah, that Jirachi. That's not good. Jirachi's probably clicking Wish this turn, healing itself up, or Baxcalibur or Sneasler. Honestly, I think I have just one option. One Mon that threatens both Jirachi and the other possible options that could come in. It's time to be aggressive and go into Iron Hands again. And it somehow even gets better with the T-Wave coming off. That is perfect. Made up for the potential blunder of me Flash Cannoning so freely, and I don't have to play mind games with who the Wish is going off to. Instead, we can attack relatively freely, though obviously I need to make sure I chunk down the Jirachi in front of me first and foremost. Heck, going Enam right now may actually be good for me with EQ killing basically any of the other switches, so let's just go ahead and do that. Just a Drain Punch coming out from Jirachi. I take minimal damage from that, despite the amount of recovery Jirachi gets, but EQ chunking it back for 56. That is excellent to see for sure, and actually, did we just achieve all of our objectives for the Unmega Sweep? Everything appears to be in range of it at +1, so if I can get it in on, say, Tatsugiri and Bug Buzz, do we just win? Well, maybe, maybe not. Remember the +2 Yanmega versus the +1 Sneasler speed thing. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, but man, we are so incredibly close to getting this set up by playing for all along, and both Hands and Empoleon do still look healthy too. Of course, I want Hands to remain healthy enough to take anything on, say that Enamorus. I want it to be healthy. I assume either Enamorus comes in this turn to tank a fighting or ground move, or Jirachi keeps Drain Punch and get chip on Hands. Either way, I'm pretty certain it is not clicking T-Wave this turn, and that means I think I want to be a little cheeky here, get the jump on it while keeping Hands healthy. I'm going to actually swap out this turn back into Cinderace. Definitely seeing the possible advantage of a bulkier set with all the opportunities I've been getting to swap in. We're going to eat up that Drain Punch, which means it may be out of range of that Bug Buzz, depending on investment and such, which isn't great, but I really like the pressure that this position exerts right now with a Pyro Ball. Only Tatsugiri tanks it, and that would easily go down to the follow-up U-turn. This looks like a very free move that I'm clicking, so long as we don't miss again. We don't, so that means Jirachi is going to go down, and we are tied up again at 4-4. Makes a ton of sense that Sneasler would be the one to come in. The only thing that could revenge Cinder safely It would be great to hang on to Cinder, honestly. Outspeeding and KOing Tatsugiri and Baxcalibur, though actually maybe at this point I could be in Ice Shard range. I believe I saw that was Adamant before. But Enam probably lives a hit pretty well. Sneasler always comes in on me and KOs. Maybe I'm better off going down here. Sucker Punch could do some chip. Oh boy, what if that Hammer is actually a Scarf? I've just been played, but I think I'm going to have to go with the deduction I made earlier that that is not Scarf. So instead, I'm just going to, as I said, Sucker Punch for some chip. And Sneasler is going to grab the KO. It's going to be with Dire Claw, 3 to 4. But this is a great situation, isn't it? I know it's locked in, so it's time to do some damage. Only, what's going to be doing that? Empoleon is immune to Dire Claw. It gives me very free Flash Cannon spam, especially with Jirachi down. That is very nice indeed. Iron Hands can tank a hit and allow me to maybe catch a prediction, but I probably want to save it and its HP right now as the only proper Revenger of this thing otherwise, if it's not locked in. And then there's Yanmega. I spent a lot of time debating this move because of Yanmega. Again, look at the range of everything. I could come in, protect, and then Terra to resist Dire Claw, and Bug Buzz up, but I'm still outsped and would need to protect again afterwards to outspeed. At that point, though, I do win. But what about a status from Dire Claw? Sleep would absolutely suck, meaning you would need to get to Dire Claw at least a couple more times, or more likely swap out into something else, meaning that I'd need to get the one-turn sleep in order to avoid disaster. Paralysis would absolutely be a disaster too, cutting my speed for Enamorous and potentially inducing a full para a la the Heat Wave. And Poison isn't game-ending, though more likely with Poison Touch, and it would severely reduce my impact such that Baxcalibur could revenge with Ice Shard. Do I leave the game up to approximately a 50-50? Yeah, maybe a little bit worse because of the Poison Touch. Or do I go Empoleon, which could end in the same scenario again? Well, it doesn't end exactly the same again. If I do go Empoleon and Tatsugiri gets sacked, as it probably should, Sneasler can indeed revenge KO again, but this time it would be locked into close combat, not Dire Claw, and with that, Yanmega would not need to Terra to revenge KO with Terra Blast, meaning I would be taking less than 20%, with the only possible status being Poison, and with a Terra after that, I should be able to just clean up against the final 3 mons while being out of range of Ice Shard, even after CC and 3 rounds of Poison. So yes, the obvious play is correct. I cannot believe how long it took for me to do this in-game, but yes, the obvious play is correct. It is going to be Empoleon, which is immune to Dire Claw, so we're going to go into that. Nothing to do but Flash Cannon. 2 should KO Tatsugiri, and 1 KOs the other 3. So Sneasler stays in, trying to catch the swap to Yanmega on Tatsugiri, I assume, but I probably would have just gone Yanmega if I wanted that, honestly. Flash Cannon KO is one of the 2 biggest threats remaining, and we're even at 3. And the revenge option is going to be Tatsugiri. That's kind of interesting to me. Empoleon is my best answer to it, even. That's fine, I suppose. I think I can just Flash Cannon away on whatever it wants to do. Draco does a quarter. Flash Cannon back is going to... Doesn't quite do a KO from this range, actually, huh? That's a lot of special defense investment. But that actually gives me an idea. I'm going to Roost back up this turn. Maybe I can end this engagement at full health guaranteed. Nasty Plot back on neutral on Roost. And then I'm going to Flash Cannon again. Is it Nasty Plot's up again? That makes sense, but here's the tricky part. You're trying to end this engagement with me in range of some sort of move, aren't you? But Roost has ruined your plan, so you boost it again to get one more big hit off. However, I have bad news for you, because Vacuum Wave will just pick off Tatsugiri with it being a stepping stone to healing instead. 3-2 thanks to Empoleon, which is excellent news. Baxcalibur is next, and well, this has to have EQ, right? That's what the Shuka is for. But thinking back, there was another way to do this, isn't there? Such that I don't have to risk anything with Yanmega. If I force Baxcalibur to KO Empoleon now, Yanmega should be coming in and getting the easy revenge KO, getting that speed boost up and not allowing Enamorous to set up. If I'm confident that Enamorous is not Choice Scarf, I can ensure Bax doesn't set up the exact same way I just did with Tatsugiri. Vacuum Wave to get Bax in range of another one, Roost up every turn until either I go down or it starts setting up. As soon as it gets up a D-Dance, I Vacuum Wave to remain at or near full health, because instead of attacking me, I do get to Roost up. And that means that I'd be as healthy as I possibly could for Enamorous. And if I went down, I can just go into Yanmega, Terra, KO, and if Enamorous isn't Scarf again or Sash, then that is a win. Instead, in an only somewhat disappointing move, I do decide to click Flash Cannon on the Glaive Rush, which is kind of interesting there. It does about the same as the powered down EQ would have done. Which does bring it to 3-1, but Enamorous is in and ready to win. And it is, of course, going to fire off Terra Superpower to claim a KO onto Empoleon. And now for the moment of truth. I could go Hariyama and take a Stellar Blast or Moon Blast and hit back with Heavy Slam, but now that it's super powered up, Heavy Slam actually doesn't KO. Actually, it's a hasty nature, not that I knew that, so it's about a 50-50 to KO. I believe a 56% chance to KO, so about a 9 and 16 chance on the rolls. Instead, I do go into the on-mega, which, I mean, that does make some sense. Something you should know now. This Enamorous does have Tailwind. If it Tailwinds on a Protect, well, I'm just going to tell you that it does not... Protect works against the Terra Blast, meaning on-mega outspeeds against not superpower, showing that it isn't choice locked. It isn't focus sashed either. Thank goodness. I could have clicked Vacuum Wave with Napoleon. Didn't for some reason, but Enamorous goes down to give the Bouffalant the 2-0 win over the previously undefeated Boopers. Great game to Samantha and the Boopers. What an awesome match. Reminds me why I love playing the game. And it's great to have our first truly well-played game from me too, I think. So that endgame, yeah, if Tailwind had gone off on my Protect turn, here's the sequence. You've got 3 turns of Tailwind left after it goes off, which means, of course, it outspeeds this just +1 Yon Mega. I can swap into Iron Hands, who looks like it should tank any hit. 2 turns of Tailwind left. Here's the fun part. If Samantha KO's Hands, 1 turn of Tailwind left, Yon Mega comes in, clicks Protect, 0 turns of Tailwind left, I outspeed and win. But if Samantha Tailwinds again on the turn, meaning it does absolutely nothing on the turn, leaving Iron Hands very low and still alive, I click Heavy Slam. And it's a 50-50 as to whether I KO. Would have been helped by Vacuum Wave, chip, sheesh. And then she KOs on the last turn of Tailwind. And then, if that happens, Yon Mega comes in, and it's a true 50-50. Do I Protect on Terra Blast or Terra Blast into Tailwind, both winning outcomes? Or do I Protect on Tailwind or Terra Blast into Terra Blast, both losing outcomes? A true 50-50. Super crazy. It could have been even closer than it was, but that's the kind of game it was. GG again to the Boopers for an absolute classic. I think I outlined my plays and possible regrets pretty well, so I'm just going to give a shout out again to my team for putting in the finest of work. Typhlosion finding the Scarf on Sneasler was honestly critical to the late game, and the chip was much appreciated. Gligar's pivoting controlled the early game for me and kept it from going off the rails. Yon Mega was excellent cleanup and could have come in earlier had I figured it out. And Napoleon got 3 KOs, devastated the matchup for the most part. Iron Hands finally felt like it was supposed to by ducking in and constantly firing off strong move, and Cinderace ripped apart the team with startling efficiency in the mid game. That's going to wrap it up from here. What a great game. You can also check out on the main channel, and it brings our record up to 3-2 with a +7 differential. Pretty nice, but there's no room to rest. I already mentioned it before, but we have a brutal rest of the schedule we will still have even after the Boofers. For reference, there's only 1 team on our entire 8-week schedule under 500 without their match against me. Yeah, if we make the playoffs this time, we have absolutely earned it. But that tough road, which will require at least 1 more win, if not 2, will have us going head-to-head against Steve Chuck's Waterdeep Wobbuffets yet again. After 4 matches in the last 2 seasons, we just cannot get out of each other's way and stop matching up against each other. Wonder if our schedule maker gets some sort of sick, twisted pleasure matching us up. We'll see you next time here for that. See ya.